Metal-heads.de.
Hello Metalheads, we are in Cologne once again and at the MTC, today with Milena and Thomas of Gold. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
You just released an album with a serious title.
Yeah, a very serious title. It's named after one of the tracks of the album, and the track is called Why Aren't You Laughing, which is a protest song, because women get the question a lot. Apparently it's very important that we're pretty and laughing all day, which I think is very stupid. And we felt like the whole album is full of songs that can give you reasons to not smile all day, because life is just pretty hard, and definitely the state of the world is very dark and heavy right now. So we felt like this was a good title for the album.
Is it really so? I mean, England got a queen and Germany have a chancellor, so there are women who are powerful and can do what they want.
Yeah, that's true. But there's still a lot of... I think it's not there's definitely a lot of kings and whatever as well. So I'm not sure if if a queen will solve it. For example, in our country, we haven't had a prime minister, a female one ever. So that's something. But I have to say that there's just, I think, lack of taking women seriously. So, for instance, today a woman is recording us, and I've been in many situations with women where they would get, let's say, advice from men like, "Oh, you should put it like this or record it like that," as if women don't understand how this works. It's the same with us with sound checking. When there's women in a band, men tend to explain it a little bit more, or it's hard to it's really hard to pinpoint, because I feel like when you say this to a man always says, "Oh, well, that's not true. It doesn't work like that," but it definitely works like that. I could get the question when we first started. I got a lot of in interviews, people always ask me how it was to be in a band as a woman, or how it is to be on tour with all those men. And I really don't understand the question. These questions would never been asked to men in bands.
Okay, let's ask the question. How is it to be with a woman on tour?
It's very normal. It's so, we're all humans, and actually I've never been on tour without a woman. Like in almost always all the bands I was in, there were women in as well. So it's but even if there's not, it's something that some men focus on more than others. I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but at a certain point this tour, there were 3 bands playing. We were headlining. There was in Vienna, we were headlining, and Nordra, who did 4 shows with us, was playing, and there were friends from ours from Rotterdam who happened to be joining us on that stage in Rotterdam in Vienna as well. And all bands had women, and that's something that at one point I kind of realized, oh wow, this is actually somehow special, but it doesn't feel special at all. And that's the way it should be. It should not be special, and when I told this to someone from our crew, I was like, yeah, you're right. All the bands have strong female representation, and it's something that other people would put a spotlight on, or like a female rock night or whatever. But it was just music in all different styles, all heavy, all progressive, all strong presences, and the need to label women, where we don't label men, is just one of the most retarded things in music. And I think it happens more in rock, because that used to be like more traditionally man and macho culture, metal then as well. But I think you'd also have it in other genres. You know, if there's an all-female pop group, they will always be named all-female pop group and stuff like that.
They must have a male manager.
Yeah, probably they must have a male manager to sell it to the guys. And but it's the thing that we try to fight is the labeling of the woman, where we don't label the man, because if that just makes the woman the special one, the one that's maybe not supposed to be here, but she is here. So let's label her. And with male, the male players, you never do that. There's never a band that we call all male or male fronted, or that's just stupid. And I'm not saying we should, but we should not. We should stop labeling the woman.
Besides that, I want to point out that it's very important topic. I think the song is definitely about that, but the title of the album is also this question, because there's just so many people that don't feel connected to other people, or feel alone, or feel like they're not understood. And I feel like probably especially those people who might not look as happy all the time get this question a lot, and I think it's just rude, because you could just it's like we don't have to be happy all the time. To me, it's just not important to be happy all the time. It's impossible to be happy all the time, and it's good to understand that there's other people that are sad as well. And I feel like you have to have a little bit of empathy towards one another, instead of just think like, you should laugh. Everything's fine, right? It's not everything's fine. You never know what somebody else experienced, or so.
I think you can't have happiness without sadness.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Do you ever been to South America?
Sorry, what?
Ever been to South America?
No.
A few days ago I spoke with Fernanda Lira of Nervosa. Do you know Nervosa? It's a thrash metal band, all female from Brazil. And she told me there are many female bands in Brazil, because they express their anger and about the situation, inequality of women, and therefore so many girls are playing aggressive metal, but they don't have women working behind the stage. I think in Europe it's just the other way around.
Yeah, well, you do see women backstage. You do see women doing production for shows, stuff like that. But I still think that males are overrepresented. But I cannot judge how the South American scene is, or how even the United States or Asian scenes are. Could very well be that the female representation here is better, but it's still not what it should be.
She told me, hey, we come to Europe and we will be on stage with many women, but they weren't. So she expected Europe to be a country or a region where there is no inequality between man and woman, and it is. Yeah. Still is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, can you give me the cover, please? So...
No, other way around. Upside down.
Upside down?
Yes.
So,
this
when I looked at the cover, I don't say that's no metal cover. And how would you describe yourself? Are you a metal band or whatever?
I don't think we're a metal band. I also don't think it's a metal cover. Definitely not. I think what defines Gold is that we we really don't like stereotypes. We don't like cliches, so we try to avoid those. We definitely love metal. We also love rock music. We also love R&B. We also love electronic music. We also love classical music. So there's many influences in our music that you might hear. I'm not sure if you would definitely hear R&B in it, but I'm sure that you would hear metal in it, or rock, or also the way the guitars play their parts and how it's layered is definitely also inspired by classical music. So there's a lot to hear, I think. And I'm not sure if there's a clear box you can put us in, which is maybe our good side and our bad side as well. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but I just half an hour ago we were walking through the city and somebody asked us, or we got into a conversation about our band, and then they asked us what kind of music it was, and it's always really hard for us to explain, because if you say it's loud rock music and there's a female singer instead of a male singer, people tend to think of After Forever or Within Temptation or whatever, which is definitely not what we're doing. So it's always pretty hard to explain. But I feel like it's post-punk and post-rock and post-metal and post-everything, as we say it. Yeah.
In my review, I failed to label it.
Yeah, it's hard.
to admit.
Or maybe you succeeded at not labeling it.
Yeah.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
Perhaps I could describe it as emotional music.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because last time you had to explain it while I was there, you said it's emotional, dark rock music, and I think that's the core of it, to say the least, which is definitely also in a lot of metal music or in a lot of rock music. So there's a link there, but I wouldn't call us metal, no.
And to be honest too, again, it's the first album I heard of you, and I only read that albums before sounded different.
I'm not sure if they sounded that different. I think the first album, definitely, it's totally different band. We never play any songs of that album anymore. We had to make it to make the music that we make now. We're not embarrassed of it, but we don't like to play it anymore. But with the second album, I think we found a little bit our own style, and with the third and this album, we made it even clearer. I think we got more comfortable with what we're doing. So, yeah, but it's definitely Thomas and I write the songs together at our house, and always on the acoustic guitar and vocals, obviously. And I think what is really something that sticks in your, or to me, what sticks in my mind when I think about our band is that there's many layers of guitar, and that there's always hooks in the guitar parts and also hooks in bass parts, and there's very tom-driven drums that make it sound like there's a storm coming, or so there's definitely a clear thought to it, I think. But with this album, some people thought it was a bit different. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah.
And actually, it's not a bad thing, you know. If you compare Master of Puppets to Kill 'Em All, they're quite different. And there's only 2 albums in between. If you listen to the discography from Velvet Underground, every album is an album on its own, and same goes for the Beatles and even the Rolling Stones, and especially in the important years, there was always this continuous drive to do something new and something different. And I think the same goes for us. You know, it's hard for us to compare albums because for us the writing process is like a continuous flow, and. You know, when we all start writing for the new album, there'll probably be like a year in between writing the first one and the last one. So it could be that the first song maybe sounds a little bit more to what this album sounded like, and you know, so it's like a continuous process, and we're not set out to do something completely different. We're sure we don't want to repeat ourselves, but yeah, what
ingredients are always the same, I think. So with those ingredients, we always write all songs, but they definitely turn out very different from each other. Yeah.
That leads me to two questions. Do you have a plan where to go with gold, or is it just spontaneous and you will see where you will float? And the second one, you have 3 guitars. Is that a thought you had from the beginning, or just happened?
Well, it kind of just happened. Yeah, you should explain.
Well, it's a funny process. When we wrote and recorded No Image, our second album, we were 2 guitar players, but there were already quite a lot of parts on that album that were better to play with 3. But we didn't set out to do that. It's just like, a lot of bands, they just have 2 guitars, but they record multiple layers, and then later on they'll find out how they do that live. But then I got a job where there was always this possibility that I would at last minute not be able to do the show because I had to work, and I didn't want to jeopardize any bookings from Gold. So we decided to get a 3rd guitar player so that we would always be a minimum of 2. So then we could definitely do every show that was booked, and ideally with 3, but worst case scenario, we do them with 2 guitar players. In the end, we only did, I think in total 4 shows with 2 guitar players, 2 that I couldn't do, and 2 others that one of the other guitar players both couldn't do. But then, having embraced the fact that we were 3, of course, we started to write more towards that as well, and to use the benefits that having 3 guitar players offers, like the layers, but also the dynamics that you can playing parts with just 1 and then adding 2 on top of them just gives a lot more dynamic than you can have with 2 guitar players. And it's just something that grew organically, and that's and now actually quite defines our sound for quite an important part. And and we'll see how that will go in the future. Maybe at some point one of the guitar players leaves and we'll stick to 2. We don't know. It's just whatever we feel like at that moment.
It's organic.
Yeah, it's organic. And so to answer your other question, like, is there a plan? Well, there is a certain plan, because if you want to operate at this level and make sure that you grow and keep evolving, I think you have to kind of have a plan. It doesn't mean that we exactly know what we're going to do in 3 months and 6 months, 18 months, 5 years. But we want to work towards something. We do plan tours quite far ahead. We're already kind of thinking about, well, maybe it's time to write. When should we maybe even record the next album? Stuff like that. And it's also something that the industry kind of forces on bands nowadays. When I first started really kind of semi-professionally do music, which is almost 20 years ago, you could just decide to go on tour in 2 or 3 months and book a tour, and the tour would be great. But nowadays you have to announce your album like 9 months beforehand. Festivals are booked a year before they are actually happening. So you really have to be, if you're not a hype, you have to plan. And Gold has never been a hype. So that means that we have to plan and make sure that people are aware that we're coming and that we're available and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard business.
Well, we like to work hard, so it's fine. Yeah, we're very energized when it comes to that.
Okay, hard leads me to another question. The stage up there is very small. You're 6 people. How does it fit?
We've played smaller stages, much smaller stages. Not that small. It's fine.
It's funny. We were warned the first time I mentioned to someone that we were playing MTC. They were like, "How are you guys gonna fit?" And then we came in today, and we were like, "Whoa, it's easy peasy." We've had much smaller stages even on this tour.
Sometimes it's not even that they're. For example, Kapu in Liens, where we played this week, is not necessarily a smaller stage, but another really nice. How do you say that?
Yeah, the setup.
It's just super weird. So therefore, we were all standing like this, but tonight is fine. Yeah, we'll be good.
Great. Okay, I somehow lost my flow. So, we feel how much time we got? We have. You want something to say to help me? No.
I don't know.
Okay, there are other lyrics on the album as well. They're more personal.
Mm-hmm.
That's personal experience or came from fantasy?
No, it's definitely all personal experience. I never really understand artists that write from fantasy, but definitely not because when you're making sad music like us, it's really easy to just use real life experiences. I think there's to me there's enough shit going on in the world to write about. So there's, for example, a song called Please Tell Me You're Not the Future, which is about us trying to, and then with us I mean everybody, trying to stick to what we already have and scared of changing, scared of progression, which I feel like is very important to be open about. So let's say that racism or sexism or whatever other problems we have could be solved if people would just talk and be open about it to each other and try to understand what the other is saying. So, for example, that is one of the songs is about that. But there's also a song called "Things I Wish I Never Knew," which is about a very traumatic experience that I had when I was 5 years old, when I found a small dead boy, which is a very sad thing to experience. And I never really had the idea to write about these things, but I felt like it was somehow it just came to me and it felt right to sing about it. And on this album there are many songs that are about those kind of things, so things that could happen to anybody and things that are very sad and hard to live with. So for example, He's Not, the first single of this album, is about loss and about somebody just dying, and you just realizing that you have to live on and that the other isn't, and that maybe you're not that happy with living on, but the other isn't, so you have to keep going. So there's just, I think life itself is the biggest inspiration to all the songs that we write. So yeah.
And you did quite an impressive video to the title song. Who came up with the idea?
Me. Yeah. Yeah, we worked on that video with Bart Kalkman, who's a really nice video artist we know. And we talked to him about making... it's funny, actually, because I have to tell you that we made a video for He Is Not with two girls working on it, because I really thought it was important to make our videos or our whatever we do with women as well. And the easiest way is to go with men, because there's just so many doing video, but we just wanted to look for the right person to do that, who was female, and we did. And then I had this idea for a video in which we would show all kinds of females, and somehow it was hard to find out with whom we would make it. And then we talked about it with our friend Bart Kalkman, who was just like, I'm not sure I have to do this because I'm a man, and then maybe we should do it, find a girl who wants to do it. But I felt like he really understood what we wanted to tell. So we decided we made it to make it with him. And I asked, well, I'm not really sure how many women are in it anymore. I think somewhere between, I think 20. Maybe between 20 and 30, I think. There's a lot of women in it. And I talked to women in the video and a big variety of women. And we asked them to just be themselves in the video, which sounds a little bit like, what are you looking at? But I was very happy to have them in. And we had women from all places in the world. So Moroccan women, Turkish women, Suriname women, Japanese, Korean. We had a trans woman. We had lesbians, straights. Didn't matter. We just wanted to show all kinds of women and just be themselves. So that was the idea behind Why Aren't You Laughing? Yeah.
It's quite impressive and somewhat different. Okay. I got a stare from behind the camera. Perhaps one last question about your producer.
Yeah. Gomez Ariano, yeah. Yeah.
He produced famous bands.
Yes, he did.
How do...
And us.
How, no. and you too.
Yeah.
How you came together?
He was on our list for a while now. We always, or I have to say we, but I think it's Thomas that listens to a lot of music and remembers producers or masters or whatever to just think about them when we need to find new people or whatever. And we made a list of producers that we liked, and this time we decided we wanted to make it with him. And we got in contact with him. I met him in London before we went into the studio, just to know if we would have a click or we would like him. And he's the best guy, so that was a very happy moment. Yeah, we went to a show together and we talked a full evening, and then I felt like we would be in good hands recording with him. He has a awesome studio in England, in a small city called Woburn, where we had the best time in summer, because there's just nothing there and the studio. So there were just crazy birds, and the best thing about it was that when we drove to the studio, almost every morning there would be a deer running over the fields, or it's the perfect place to be. So
yeah, and what Gomez is really good at is just getting the best out of a band. With the previous albums, we would work with producers that were more artistic and maybe really add their own character to the whole production process. But Gomez was all about our character and what are our ideas and how do we get them across the best way possible. And he's just a fantastic listener, and he just hears what we're doing. Then he sees, okay, this you want to do this, but you want to do that at the same time. So we have to get that as clear as possible, where it never gets in the way of each other. And then we would work on the drum sounds and get specific guitar sounds for the different parts, where they would leave room for the other guitar parts, but for the vocals and the bass as well. So that makes for a super clear and transparent album, which is never too clinical, which is never flat, but constantly vibrating and warm and super emotional. And it's just, I think, the best that we can sound. And
I think that's the most important. He made us. I think it's with this album. It's very clear what we wanted to tell people. It's very clear what we wanted to sound like, and that's definitely because he he recorded it and he produced it and mastered it super well.
Yeah, and that's if you listen to his other works, that's the same as well. Yeah. Orange Goblin sound like Orange Goblin, Orange Pazuzu sound like Orange Pazuzu. They all just sound like their own, and never it's kind of weird because it almost sounds like a negative remark, but it's like the most positive one. Never sounds like a Gomez album. It's just always the band that you listen to, and that's thanks to Gomez's fantastic abilities and his skills that he never gets in the way of the band.
Thanks, James. Okay, unfortunately, we have to come to an end. But perhaps you can name 3 artists or band you would recommend our viewers instead of any last words, just good music.
Well, let's say Nordra. We played with her a few shows and it was awesome. Let's say FKA Twigs. I really love her voice. She just released a new single. And let's say, do we have to say 3? Each? Okay, okay.
Or 5, or whatever you want.
5? No, 3 is fine. 3 is good. And let's say Portishead, because they're just my all-time favorites.
Yeah, I wanted to say Portishead as well, because third is like maybe one of the best albums ever made and huge impact on us. Like if you really want to listen to an album that's totally free of genre and free of stereotypes, next to ours, then third from Portishead is just amazing and super emotional. One of my favorite black metal bands of now is Murg from Sweden, MURG. I'm not sure if I pronounced it the right way. They just released their new album, which I haven't heard, so I'm super excited to listen to that when I come back from tour. And the third one... Well, yeah, I can never stress this because people always think it's ridiculous. But Jesus from Kanye West is just like one of the best albums of the last 5 to 10 years. Super punk, super heavy. It's not always friendly, but music shouldn't and art shouldn't not constantly be friendly and kind. But it's just super radical and like music and good art should be. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And next time you watch the video, count the woman in there.
Metal-heads.de